it's looked down upon in certain sectors now to wave your flag and be supportive of your tricolour flag. Again, that's been in my country, that's happened to my flags all my life.
Hate speech laws that they were trying to bring in, and I don't know if you heard at the time, but the package that they were trying to put into law was the most draconian hate speech laws in the entire world. It was loopy-loo stuff. People getting stabbed randomly, and unless somebody's murdered, which has happened quite often, it's just nothing to see. It's just another stabbing. Just some lad went at another lad with a knife. That's not Ireland. That's not the Ireland I know.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing, but returning guest, all the way from the Republic of Ireland, is Derek Domino. How you doing, pal?
Doing great. Great to be back with you. Look forward to these little chats, I do.
Oh well, we're gonna have to do them every month, just so we can keep each other updated on what's going on in our countries.
Absolutely, I'm up for that.
Excellent. Last time we spoke, we talked about what's happened to Ireland over the last 20, 30 years. Mass immigration, which I knew about, but you told me about the demonization of Irish culture is to take hold now, which has surprised me because I've had that all my life in England. And when you told me now that it's looked down upon in certain sectors now to wave your flag and be supportive of your tricolour flag, again, that's been in my country, that's happened to my flags all my life. Now, I don't like ending podcasts on a negative note, but we did on that one, as in we talked about all the problems. In this episode, let's talk about what we're going to do. What's Ireland going to do? I saw a video a few days ago, a week ago, a protest in Dublin. I've never seen so many Irish tricolour flags. There was tens and tens of thousands of people marching on the streets. You've even got one of your famous exports, Conor McGregor, saying, "I'm standing to be president." Things seem to be happening in Ireland. You're more connected to each other and more supportive of each other than we are in my country. Maybe that's because we've been under attack now for 70 years. You've only been under attack for, 2 decades. So maybe it's still new for you. What's Ireland doing now about this?
Well, a lot of people are waking up now because there has been a concerted effort since this, for the last 20 years, let's just say since this whole momentum has got into play. There's been a concerted effort to, number one, downplay it, as in there's nothing happened, nothing to see here. And if you notice anything, there's something wrong with you. And then there was a concerted effort to demonize anybody who did notice it and had the temerity to actually criticize it or mention it or bring it up in conversations. So the landscape, if I could just briefly explain, the landscape in terms of the political landscape, the media landscape, is very, very carefully managed and curated. We have a political system that is designed so that nothing can ever change. It doesn't matter who you vote for, you get the same thing. So there's that. So they have that now wrapped up. We have 3 big parties, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin. So you always get 2 out of the 3. But the 3 of them are all very similar. So, okay, one party is going to lower VAT by 1%. Another party is going to lower it by 1.5%. Like, who cares? That's really where we're at. But nobody will tackle the real big issues. So the political system is locked down. As Professor David Betts said in a few talks, I don't know if you've seen him talking, that we now live in a managed democracy. It's essentially performative. We go through all the motions. We go through the campaigns, the votes, but it's essentially performative art. It's designed so you never get what you want.
It's to give you an illusion of democracy, an illusion that your vote matters, and that's in the hope to keep you pliable and non-violent.
Yes, and in lockstep with this, the glove on this iron fist is the mainstream media, which again is locked down in Ireland. I mean, it's completely in lockstep with the government. They are not the fourth estate anymore. They no longer hold the government to account. They just parrot government narratives and propaganda, essentially. And as well as that, our state broadcaster, RTE, which is our version of the BBC, they are completely in the pocket of the government now. They recently got a bailout of 750 million because the organization had become so utterly dysfunctional and so utterly packed to the rafters with waste that it ran out of money and essentially went spectacularly bust, or it should have been. But the government bailed them out, of course, because it's a mouthpiece. It's like the BBC. The government funnels all its propaganda through the state broadcaster because they know most ordinary Irish people, for better or for worse, it's for worse in my view, still get their information from the 6 o'clock news, the 9 o'clock news, or the talking head shows, which is now completely controlled by the government. It's no longer fair and unbiased as media should be. So you've got the state media, mainstream media, and plus you've got all the, say, the regional radio stations, the newspapers, the magazines. They're all owned by just a handful of big corporations, European. Again, just a couple of players control everything. And they're all getting sweeteners and sweet deals from the government. And there's a constant pipeline of journalists, so-called, who then switch over to become government minister advisors on big money. So there's this absolutely incestuous, unhealthy paradigm in Irish society. So anybody who tries to break through the government's narrative, the government's direction, comes up against these two brick walls. You've got the political apparatus, which controls, as you know, the police and all the state, the civil service. Then you've got the mainstream media, again, who are arm in arm with the state, and they're the attack dogs if anybody gets out of line. They will demonize you, they'll hammer you, they'll write articles about you. So really, anybody to break out of this bubble, it's a Herculean task. And Conor McGregor, as you've pointed out, has gotten stuck into the middle of this. And it's only the fact that he's so huge as a brand in world terms that he's even at the races here. Because an ordinary person's no chance. But ordinary people, what you saw on Saturday there, and I was in the middle of it. I was there in the middle of it, loving it, lapping it up. And that was such a cross-section of Irish people. It wasn't a young crowd, it wasn't an old crowd, it wasn't a middle-aged. It was everything. Absolutely every age group of Irish people, all flying the tricolour and delighted to do it. Because people are waking up to how controlled the whole system is, and they don't like it.
Am I right in saying that demonstration was organised and only able to be organised because of social media? And isn't social media a little bit of an equalizer now against the mainstream press? The mainstream press is still more powerful, but that's diminishing every year. But people like me and you with our YouTube channels, people on X and Facebook, people are turning towards alternative media more and more and more now. And mainstream media is slowly dying across the Western world, not just Ireland and the UK. And it's a matter of time now. Might be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, where social media and independent, I mean, you're basically journalists to a certain extent, opinion pieces we give out, that's going to become stronger and stronger and stronger. And the government has no control over that. Hence why in my country, they're trying to limit social media reach. We've got people in jail in the UK today for tweeting last year, for tweeting in jail in this country. If you'd have said that to me 10 years ago, I'd have said you're mental. But today, that's today. People in jail for tweeting stuff online. What they said, some of it was horrendous. But even if it was horrendous, does that justify jail, 3 years in jail? Some of them were just critical and still got jail.
It's, to me, it's indicative of a failing system, because any system that is breaking down and that is losing touch with the population, it has to become more and more draconian. Because, I mean, we never, and we had the same thing here in Ireland a couple of years ago with hate speech laws that they were trying to bring in. And I don't know if you heard at the time, but the package that they were trying to put into law was the most draconian hate speech laws in the entire world. It was loopy-loo stuff. And only that there was such, it blew up in social media, as you say, which is the only tool we really have. And it was getting talked about on Joe Rogan and all over the place. And it absolutely embarrassed the daylights out of them. They thought they could kind of, shuffle it through, sneak it through, ram it through before anybody noticed. And next thing, they'd be picking people like me up and, doing me for all kinds of spurious things, which they are doing, as I know, in the UK, as you've rightly said. And it's horrendous. But to me, that's indicative of a system that's failing. When you're at that point where you're locking up people for an off-color joke or an off-color remark or something that somebody somewhere for some reason took offense to for some reason, you really have lost. You've lost the room. You're drifting off into the USSR there. They were big into that, all these regimes. So you really are on the wrong side of history with that kind of plan. And they didn't get it through here. They watered it down, but they dearly love to. And they may come back at it again. Because as you say, channels like yours and mine, we're going to hang in as long as we can doing what we do, because there's a massive gap in the market for that now. And I heard that time and time again, because I was delighted to meet people in that march on Saturday who watch my channel. And all of them said, look, we watch you to know what's going on, because we realize now that we're not getting it from the 6 o'clock news. We're not getting it from RTE. We're not getting from BBC or the radio. They're not telling us. They're giving us a version of a story that we know isn't true. It doesn't add up. Whereas we watch you and you just give us what we already, have a sense is going on. And it's the same in the UK, I'm sure.
Oh, the UK, I mean, you can be 99.9% correct at guessing the ethnicity of a violent criminal, of a sex offender, by reading the BBC, if they do not mention the person's ethnicity or skin color. If that's not in there, the person was described as black or brown. And they don't give you any. So they tell us information for us to think about. I was around that area. Did I see anybody? So the basic information they could give you to help catch a criminal, they leave out because they're scared of being called racist. We used to have a program on the TV called Crime Watch, where every couple of weeks they would go through certain crimes and act them out. And they were very successful in generating more leads and catching people. They ended up cancelling that. Why? Because almost every criminal that they acted out was black or brown. And it's like, oh, we're being racist now. So we've been getting this for decades and decades and decades. Going back to hate crime, let me tell you this to be on the lookout for, because this is the next stage in my country and your country. Because we've seen it in China and we've seen it in Eastern Europe decades ago. It's when they start empowering young people to grass up their parents and friends of things they've said hateful. So when there's a project, a government-sponsored project of getting school children to come back into school and tell their teacher, report to their teacher that their dad was racist or their mum was transphobic, or that's the next stage here, because that's what every other authoritarian regime has ever done. You weaponize the children, because children are easy to brainwash. You send them to school, they do as they're told, so they do what teachers say. I can see us in Western Europe. I'm not saying it's going to work, but I can see them attempting this. They will dress it up as something pink and fluffy. It'll be called help your parents be better people. Help your parents be a better people. It'll be something like that. But what it really will be is children grassing up their parents and sending them to the gulag.
Well, as you say, this is a playbook. It's not new. This has been acted out many places at many times, and it always ends the same way. It ends up in revolution. At some point, the thing just can't hold anymore, and people just have enough. And I was interested in what Professor David Betts has been talking about, because he studies revolutions and rebellions and uprisings and all these types of things. But as he says, he's been doing it for a long time. He's usually been researching South America or Africa, but a lot of the ingredients he maintains are now here in Western Europe. I mean, I can believe it. I can believe it, Nick, because as I said, I was in that march on Saturday, a sea of tricolours, and people my age, older than me, younger than me, kids, people with prams. That's not the far right. That is not the far right. That's not a fascist march, And I saw the after the Southport atrocity, they were ordinary people. You could see it in the videos. They were ordinary people who had enough, that just blew a fuse, and rightly so, because of what happened, and facilitated things like that, facilitated by the government's, actions, premeditated. This is a plan the government is ramming through, regardless of what people think.
I interviewed David Betts a couple of months ago on my channel. Fascinating. It's like a 1 hour discussion. And I came to the conclusion, talking to him, and we discussed this bit, that the civil war in the UK has already started. We just don't think it started. And we talked about 3 different points about how it started. The first point is radical Islam. That's an obvious one. We've had bombs going off, stabbings, terrorist attacks. That's an obvious one. So we've got a section of the population of this island who are actively killing and fighting the majority. So that's an obvious one. But then there's 2 more that aren't that obvious until I talk about them, which is the next one is the eco-green agenda. The eco-green agenda, these nutcases were the number 1 threat to the UK and America 20 years ago, 30 years ago. The FBI and MI5 were warning government and were writing strategies how to combat the violent eco-terrorists that they say are coming next, because they've been trying to change the world and change policy peacefully as the first step to then say, and it's not worked. They push the general public hoping for violence, not the 70-year-old ex-school teacher. They're pawns in this. I'm talking about the people behind the scenes. They're pushing the general public to turn violent, so then they can say, we tried peaceful, no one listened to us. We've been assaulted and attacked. We now have to go violent ourselves. And this was a big threat 20, 30 years ago. But then Islam took over and we looked at Islamic terrorism then. So we've already got them nutcases waiting. And don't forget, if you think the world's dying, isn't it valid to kill 20, 30, 40 people, blow up a shopping mall and kill 100? If you're saving 7, 8 billion people, isn't that worth it? So that's how they will do that in their heads, mental gymnastics. And the next one is the general public. In London, we have people called the Blade Runners, and they're people with chainsaws going around chopping down ULEZ cameras, so cameras that make you pay when you drive into the city centre, all about the net zero stuff. So we have citizens now who are attacking the state and cutting down state infrastructure. So there's 3 examples of this civil war's already started. And once we start getting more violence, and we saw this at Southport last year, people automatically retreat into ethnic or religious tribes, because at the end of the day, me and you are tribal creatures. For 300,000 years, we lived in tribes. It's only recently we haven't. And when bad times come, we go back into our group for safety, and then we see other people as the enemy. They're taking our resources. Let's kill them before they kill us. And all these pieces are in play at the moment, and I fear the next version of the Southport atrocity is going to lead to mass violence, and people have learned a lesson from that. There'll be no more tweeting in your own name when you're trying to encourage people for violence, because you get sent to jail for that now. The people who go on the streets will be wearing masks now. because they didn't wear masks last time and all went to jail. Times have changed in the UK. I fear for the next atrocity.
Well, I think you're absolutely on the money there. And it is only a question of time. It's not if, it's when something kicks off. Because, like you pointed out, there's a lot of crazies in the mix now. Apart from the eco people, as you say, the radical Islamists, there's a lot of nut jobs out there who are fighting for a cause, or fighting to save the world, or fighting to convert the world, whatever it might be. There's a lot of unhinged people out there who are capable, as we've seen, of the most atrocious acts. And as a society, and I speak having grown up in a society where, you know, if somebody stole a bicycle, it was in the news for about 6 months. You know, there's stabbings every day now. People don't even, it just washes over us now. People getting stabbed randomly, and unless somebody's murdered, which has happened quite often, it's just nothing to see. It's just another stabbing. Just some lad went at another lad with a knife. That's not Ireland. That's not the Ireland I know. You know, like a policeman's main job when I was a kid was catching lads with no light on their bicycle, you know, after dark. That was, I know it sounds a bit naff, but that was part of it. There was no such thing as what the level of violence we're seeing now, the level of sexual assaults we're seeing now. And a lot of the women who marched on Saturday, and I spoke to many of them, don't feel safe on our streets in Ireland. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me.
Let's get into sexual assault. So in the UK, 75% of all sexual assaults in the UK are by foreigners. 75%. And we've released some. The government have been forced to release some stats over the last year on migrant crime, and you won't believe places like Albania, white people. So this isn't about being racist. These are white. Albanians commit the most crime in the UK, white Europeans. I don't want them here. This isn't about black or brown. This is about criminals. People from Afghanistan, Syria commit, something like 100 times more crime than other people. And it's absolutely shocking. There was an incident in Ireland a couple of years ago, which resonated with me because my dad's from, like I said, from just outside Tullamore, and there's a big canal, the Grand Canal goes near there, and there was an Irish school teacher having a morning jog, trying to keep fit, running down the side of the canal somewhere near there. My understanding, I might have some of the details slightly wrong here, a migrant who'd been in the country 20 years, never worked, claimed benefits, raped and murdered her on the banks of the canal. And my first thing is, why are these people in your country? Why are the same people in my country? There might be an argument for having migrants who come and do jobs and work. I don't think there is an argument for that, but I can see people making an argument for that. But waste of space, people who come, don't work, commit crime, rape and kill people. Why were they in our countries in the first place?
Well, that was an absolutely, it shocked Ireland. It was such a horrendous murder. In the middle of the day, it wasn't late at night. She was just jogging in the middle of the day, as you say, along the canal. Joseph Pushko's guy, he's a guy, a Slovakian Roma gypsy of that heritage. And he'd been here 10 years, just over 10 years, with his whole family. He'd never had a job, never worked, neither had his family. He was on some form of disability allowance, even though he seemed quite fit. He was cycling around town every day. I don't know what disability he claimed to have. But as you say, absolutely no contribution whatsoever, no addition whatsoever to Ireland or the Irish from the moment he arrived right up until that horrendous murder, which was vicious. And even after it happened, the media tried to obfuscate what he did. You know, they tried to put out initial stories that she was suffocated. No, she was viciously stabbed. I can't even say it. It was so horrendous. You can look it up. People can look it up if they want. But the media ran cover in their way to try and dampen it down. And only yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, his family, his wife and his brothers and whoever, I think they have a 5-bedroom council house or something. It's crazy, absolute crackerjack stuff. They're now gone on trial for covering up, for trying to shield him, for trying to. I mean, it's mind-boggling, that these people can not only get here and come here, but live here, get full access to government housing and benefits, seemingly limitless. And here's the main point I want to make about this. By the EU's own rules, we're still in it, unfortunately. You guys got out. By their own rules, a person cannot come here or move to another country from any other EU state for more than 90 days unless they can support themselves. As in, they've got a job, they're making a few bob, they're doing something. So after 90 days, we had every right to tell Joseph Pushkin and his clan to get lost. And we didn't. And my question to the political class is, why? What game is this? What game are you playing? Why are people flooding in from other EU countries, signing on to welfare, going on the dole or whatever, signing on the housing list? We have a housing crisis here, as you know. And why are we not just telling them to go home after 3 months, which we have every right to do, even by the EU's rules? So that's how utterly dysfunctional the thing is.
Does Ireland ever deport anybody? Because in my country, we deport virtually no one. We even rapists, murderers, paedophiles, we don't deport anybody because I've always got a valid excuse. We had an Albanian committed a horrendous crime. I can't remember what crime it was. Horrendous. We couldn't deport him because it'd be unfair on his son, who doesn't like foreign chicken McNuggets. That was raised in a court of law. We had a Jamaican, again, horrendous crime. We couldn't deport because I don't remember now. A Jamaican, horrendous domestic violence. We couldn't deport him because his girlfriend's kid, not his kid, his girlfriend's kid is questioning her gender, and he's the only one she speaks to. So we couldn't deport him. And it's like, you cannot deport anybody from the UK. Is it the same in Ireland?
Yes, is the short answer. We had a flight, ironic that you mentioned, we had a flight last night, a chartered flight, where we sent back, I think, 35 Georgians on a plane that probably held 150 or 60 seats. It probably cost us 10 million quid to do it. So the answer is no, we don't, not in any meaningful way. They do token gestures, especially coming up to elections or local elections. There'll be a bit of a flap about, we're going to start deporting people. No, what we have here is a thing called self-deportation. That's the system which Ireland operates. And it's essentially, you're issued a deportation order and they send you a Dear John letter asking you if you'd be ever so kind as to go away. Now, we both know that's about as useful as a chocolate teapot. It's nonsense. And even when they don't go away, as far as I understand it, they still stay on welfare. They don't even stop paying them. So it's nonsense heaped on more nonsense, to a point where an ordinary person says, what the hell is going on? Like, this cannot be right. And you know what I think it all boils down to, Nick? We have lost the ability, both here and there, to make difficult decisions. We've lost the ability. Can't do it. As soon as there's a picture of a crying child or a woman looking distressed, that's it. Change the law. Stop everything. No, we have to figure this out, because remigration, you probably knew I was going to come out with that at some point. Remigration or remigration, whatever way you want to say it, I think that is going to become a big word in the next few years. It's already floating around there, but I think it's going to come.
Sweden are offering people something like 38,000 euros per person to go back to where you came from. So if you've got a family of five, that's a lot of money, especially if you go into the third world. You're made for life there with that. The immigration is going to be the word of the next decade because many countries are looking at it. We've got a little bit of that now in the UK. So we have self-deportation in the UK. But to help you on the way, we give you £3,000. We actually pay people to leave who then can go home to, let's say, Albania for 6 months or whatever, 2 days. We pay for the flight as well. And then they come back. So we pay them to go on the holiday.
Of course.
In the UK, something like 80% of all asylum seekers in the UK, asylum seekers, meaning they're fleeing danger and life-threatening danger, 80% of them in the UK go back to their original country for holidays and weddings. So how dangerous is that country? If I was fleeing the Nazis as a Jew, I won't be flying back into Berlin for a bar mitzvah, would I? No.
It's beyond farcical. And even recently, our government actually came out and admitted, the Taoiseach Micheál Martin, he admitted that over 80% of asylum claimants are bogus. Over 80%. We all knew this. Everybody knew this. But they were, as you say, practically putting people in jail or destroying their career, getting them deplatformed or thrown out of their football club for saying that 6 months ago. But now they've come out. So if they're admitting that openly now, the next question is, and what are you doing about it? Because this 80%, and I suggest it's 90% or 95%, they are fleecing us. They are fleecing us because we have become a soft touch. And I go back to my point. We've lost the ability, it seems to me, to make difficult decisions.
Let me dig into that a little bit more because I agree with that, but I think there's something under that I'd like you to think about. And that's, we don't make difficult decisions. And that's because English men today and Irish men today are inferior versions of the men who went before. We're more cowardly, we're more feminized, we're more pink and fluffy. We're basically more pathetic than we've ever been because all these problems could have been solved and could have been stopped from happening if your men and my men in our countries were better men.
Yes, I'll take that. I'll take that and I'll run with it. So yes, you're right in a way, and there's a reason for it, as far as I'm concerned, and that is the rise of feminism, the rise of third wave feminism. And you live in the same world that I do, which is a world now where we are the butt of every joke. We are always the bad guy in a TV show, or the evil guy, or the stupid guy. We are constantly demeaned, joked about, made fun of, ragged on. You know, men have been utterly hollowed out in the last 20 or 30 years because, you know, as I said with my bit about the church imploding and all these crazy feminists coming in, they wanted revenge. It wasn't about equal rights, as far as I could see. No, they wanted their time, you know, and their revenge, and they see men as the enemy. You know, I didn't grow up in a world where men and women were enemies, you know, whereas the way a lot of it is framed now, as far as I can see, and you can give me your thoughts on this one, it's men versus women, you know, as opposed to men and women, you know, acting together, giving their best reach with their different talents and strengths and whatever. It's now a competition. And the problem is that the whole society is skewed against men, you know, and even that recent show, Adolescence, which was on everybody's lips. I mean, to me, that was just another sad indictment of how the wokerati, you know, the people in the chattering classes view us. They see us as Neanderthals, and that we have to be kept down and kept a lid on because they know better than us. They're more virtuous than us. They have all the answers about being kind and virtuous and wonderful people and salt of the earth and helping everybody. Whereas people like you and I might just say, listen, here's the thing that's happening. It's all wrong. And here's the solution. So let's just do it. That's gone.
I agree. Men and women are different. Men and women need each other because we bring different things to the table. And when
Absolutely.
you partner up with somebody long term, you become team amazing because you complement each other. You have different skills, you have different abilities, different traits, because we need to be in those partnerships, male and female, especially if we're having and raising children. You need a mother just as much as you need a father, and all those things have been removed from our society. This would be a great conversation for another day, because I wrote a book on this called Feminism. I'll send you a copy after this, and it'll be a PDF copy. And let's have a conversation on feminism another day, because I think you'll thoroughly enjoy the book.
Absolutely. I look forward to getting and reading it. And let's get into the weeds.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the reason why we do what we do, because we're not afraid to get in there and tackle the salty subjects that a lot of people won't go near. Well, we're the guys to tackle it. We get stuck into that one.
No, absolutely, because there is no simple answers. We need these in-depth conversations to get to the nitty-gritty. If someone tells you, in 3 minutes what's wrong with our society, well, they don't understand what's wrong with our society. This is complicated. Me and you might be wrong, but at least we're trying to dig for the answers and having long-form, serious conversations to see if we can ever find the truth, because we won't know until we find it.
And and you're probably the same, I find my comment section fascinating, because I learn so much from other people's comments and views, because they come at it from all different angles. So even by us having a conversation like we are, and conversations like this, the comment section will be alive with things neither of us have thought about, from people probably smarter than us, so, and that's why these conversations should happen and need to happen, because what radiates out from us chatting is people commenting on us chatting, and people commenting on ideas we've floated or thrown out, be it good or bad, and putting their own ideas into the mix. That's how it works, and I think that's the way to do it.
Absolutely. Perfect place to end. Derek, thank you so much for coming on my show again.
Absolute pleasure. Anytime.